Welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast, hosted by Dave Roberts. Humanity possesses a unique skill, the ability to pass knowledge from one generation to the next. This podcast embraces that ability, offering learning opportunities through conversations with extraordinary guests. Dave aims to leave a positive mark on individuals around the world. So before you dive into today's episode, please share this podcast with your network, including friends, family, and colleagues. And please consider leaving a rating or review. Your support makes all the difference.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, and today it is my pleasure to have as my guest Sebastian Koellner. Sebastian Koellner, better known as the Chief Mindsetter, believes freedom isn't about working harder, it's about mastering your time, energy, and attention. His philosophy: mindset isn't actually set because you can change it anytime you choose. For over 15 years, Sebastian excelled in corporate leadership. But his pursuit of success came at a cost: missed family dinners, declining health, and a constant feeling of being on the clock. When he transitioned to entrepreneurship, seeking freedom, he found himself trapped in a different cycle, this time as his own toughest boss. Sebastian realized true freedom isn't about hustle or someday in the future. It's about designing systems that let you invest your time, energy, and attention in what matters most. Now, Sebastian helps high-performing entrepreneurs and leaders reclaim their most valuable resource, their time, and redefine success on their terms. As the chief mindsetter, he equips clients with tools to build intentional life-work integration, empowering them to run seven-figure businesses in 30 hours a week or less. Outside of coaching, Sebastian meditates, builds strength and vitality through exercise, and enjoys time with his three kids, because business success should never come at the cost of life's most important moments. Sebastian, welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast. I've been looking forward to our conversation for quite a while now.
Oh, well, thanks so much for having me, Dave. It's a pleasure to be here.
And we were introduced, I got to throw out props to Radha Masuria, who suggested, you may want to talk to Sebastian Koellner. I think he's got a great message that would resonate with your listeners. One pre-call later, and here we are.
Exactly. And I think the connection there is, if you've listened to the episode on how the gut determines your health and where you go, I think your mindset, that conglomerate of beliefs and stories we all have in our heads, does the same thing, just on a different dimension.
Absolutely. We're going to get into kind of the voices inside of our head. We're going to talk about that at length during the podcast. My first question for you is, please tell our listeners about the experiences that have contributed to your life path and shaped your role as a chief mindsetter for those individuals whom you serve.
Yeah, I think there's two big things to that. One is, if you've met me in my late teens or early 20s and asked me, like, why are you so driven and so successful in school and in college and all of that, I would have told you, oh, that's easy, because I don't have emotions, so nothing gets in the way of doing what I want to do. Okay. And you might have said, oh, Sebastian, everybody's got emotions. I would have said, no, you don't get it. I don't have it. Now, 20 some years later, depending on how you count, right, I realized that it was true. My experience was, I don't have them because I disconnected from everything, like from the neck on down. Okay. And I already had two kids, and my third kid on the way. I was feeling latently depressed in my corporate career, and I wasn't excited about my third child being born. And I knew, something really is up. And to this day, I don't know what drove me, divine intervention or otherwise, but I listened to a guided meditation by Marissa Peer, and the meditation was already pretty much done. And all of a sudden, the guy who didn't have emotions, right, yours truly, I found myself bawling my eyes out on my living room floor. Because somehow that meditation had connected me to memories from when I was a year old, a year and a half old. So I didn't even have words at the time, but a lot of loneliness and all of that came up. When I got up, went to the bathroom to dry my face off and all that, for the first time looking in the mirror, I actually recognized myself in a very sort of strange, hard to put in words kind of way, not just the face I was used to shaving. And that was the moment where I knew, oh, wow, this is powerful. I want to learn to do that for other people. And that's what really got me started. I learned rapid transformational therapy from Mercer Peer, did any kind of coaching therapy certification or work really helps you to, have you work through your own stuff. And I think another pivotal moment for coming directly to the chief mindset part was, and then at some point when the opportunity arose, I took the golden handshake from my boss and went out to do my own thing. Okay. So here I am now building my coaching business, and I struggled. Yes, struggled with building a business because it takes time. And just because you know how to coach doesn't mean you know how to build a business. While I was building my business, I always felt torn and pulled because my kids were young. I wanted to spend time with them, right? Here I was building my own business to have more time and freedom, but yet I spend all this time on building the business because it does take time. Paradoxically, when I said, screw it, and went and had time with them, I was never fully present either because here I was worried about the business, worried about paying the bills, worried when the money would run out, worried if I could do it, all of that. And my coach at the time said, it sounds like you have a story in your head that says you can either run a successful business or be the kind of dad that you want to be. And he just changed my entire world around with a simple question. Well, how might you have both? And like that, my belief shifted. Yeah, it still took me another 6 months or so to put everything in place to really create the life I truly wanted. It took probably up to this point, I'm still working on it to not get stressed over things, right? But it shifted with that one simple question. And that's the moment among many others, but that really taught me mindset. It's not fixed because it takes one question, it takes one insight, it takes one decision. And you change it like that. And if you change it, your whole world changes.
Absolutely. If mindset was fixed, there'd be no growth.
Exactly.
And it's interesting that your coaching mentor asked you that question. Why can't you have both? I had a student that was looking for some academic advice for me for graduate school.
Mhm.
She's a very multi-talented individual, very multifaceted. You could not pigeonhole her into one category of a helping profession. So she goes, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. But one of my advisors said, well, you can't have it all. I said, well, why not? Why can't you find a program that speaks to the multidimensional talents that you have and can satisfy all of that? Because as you know, Sebastian, society teaches us limitation. They tell us what we can't do, but they don't tell us what we can do. And so it's about potential and it's rather than limitation. I told her, I said, don't look at what you can't do, look what you can do. And if you want it all, shoot for getting it all.
For what I would add to that is, you've essentially done that for her. And maybe this is just a nugget for any listener to take right from the get go. The most powerful question I know is, how might I? How could I? Because when you put that to your mind, even if you don't have an answer readily emerging, your mind can't help but try and find an answer to that question. All of a sudden, you look for how, which opens possibility. Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're always right. Henry Ford, a few others have been credited with that saying. It's an age-old truth. Okay. And the thing is, if you go push for the things that common sense, which isn't all that common, or standard wisdom says cannot be done, yeah, there'll be pushback. Yeah, there'll be, resistance. Yeah, there'll be the naysayers. You do upset the people around you because you're challenging the status quo, right? You grow, which means all your relationships have to evolve with you, or you find that some of them might have just been there for, a part of your life and will not grow with you. And we're all hardwired to prefer the status quo.
Absolutely. And, somebody told me once that the status quo sucks. And, it's just conventional wisdom is highly overrated. And you get individuals who are trailblazers who are going to challenge that and they're open about challenging it. They're automatically going to become targets for the naysayers because what we've done is I think we've uncovered their worst fear. Oh my goodness, you're going to go away from what's known as conventional wisdom, but conventional wisdom is highly overrated. As you know, Albert Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And it's because we adhere to conventional wisdom, and particularly conventional wisdom in the past has proven not to be effective, but we do it anyway.
The stories and the truths
Mhm.
we hold in here, right?
Yep.
In our own heads, because that's what I filter the whole world through. We don't experience the world as it is. We all experience a version of the world that corresponds to what we believe
Yeah.
it's, right? We all have a program that basically says, this is how love works. This is how success works. This is how money works. This is how relationships work. This is how spirituality works. Like for all those, right? You think of it, we all have a blueprint
Mhm.
for it. And we basically live patterns and habits
Mhm.
according to the
Mhm.
blueprint. So if you really want to get different results, it's not as simple as, well, go do something different. But you
Mhm.
got to get to those layers underneath and get down to what's the blueprint, what's the belief, what's the identity I have, and how do I shift that?
That's right. And what's the blueprint that's going to work for my own specific needs as opposed to the needs that everybody else has dictated that I should have? And what it comes down to is that we have free will. We should understand that, use our free will to empower ourselves to co-create the life of our own choosing in conjunction with the universe. Speaking of, you know, the things that we tell ourselves, this is a nice segue into the next question. I had found this quote that was attributed to Laird Hamilton. I love this quote. Make sure your own worst enemy doesn't live between
Mm,
your own two ears.
mm,
We talked during our pre-chat about exploring the voices in our head. I think this quote kind of dovetails nicely with
mm.
that concept that we were talking about. First of all, what are the things that we tell ourselves about ourselves that inhibit us with shifting our mindset to ensure personal fulfillment and professional success?
I think the exact words, the exact sentences are very unique because we each have our own unique story. And here come two buts. But the fact that any one of your listeners right now thinks, yeah, my situation is special and I'm the only one who has this particular situation and I'm the only one who doubts myself despite all the success I've had, that very thing is what makes you the same as everybody else. I don't care how much confidence somebody projects. I don't care how much success they have. If you push them to the edge of their comfort zone, every single one of us is going to experience fear and doubt because that's a survival mechanism that is hardwired into us. So understand that when you feel self-doubt, when you feel afraid, that's not a sign to stop. That's actually an indicator that you're leaving the status quo, the comfort zone. And if it's something worthwhile doing, feel the fear and go do it anyway. So that's the one part, right? That what that self-doubt is, whether it's I can't, or I don't have the time, or I don't have the money, I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm too that. I don't care which form. But anytime you have this I am too, yeah, that's just your survival brain talking.
Mm-hmm.
Because it hasn't caught on to the fact that we no longer live in a time where trying new food is not that likely to kill you. But I think there's another thing about all those different stories. Fundamentally, there's three main versions of this. I'm not good enough. It's not for me, right? And even underneath that, I think there is one, and this is an insight out of the book, right? Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You have sort of high level fears. Oh, I might get rejected, or they might say no, all of that. When you look at the next level, there is fear of rejection, there's fear of failure, all these sorts of things. But what it all comes down to is one fear. And that is, what if I can't handle it? And we make up all kinds of stories of what might happen, right? It's like, I've experienced a lot of horrible things in my life, some of which actually happen, right? We
Mm-hmm.
constantly have all,
Mm-hmm.
all these things in there. And I think that's what really gets in the way. Let me maybe illustrate that with a story of a client of mine who she built a 7-figure business previously, okay, in a different sort of industry, now switched to building her coaching business. And when we talked, she goes, look, I can't figure this out. I'm stuck at this kind of 5-figure a month mark. Now, granted, for a coach, that's already a pretty high level to be stuck, right? But hey, she built a 7-figure business before. So here, her excuse is not, I don't know how to build a business, right? So she's like, there's got to be something here. And when we explored and when we did a deep dive into the blueprints, into the stories, we finally touched on something where she told me, look, at the height of my previous business, my husband walked out on me, claiming that I cared more about the business than about our marriage. And within weeks of him walking out on me, my mom suffered a stroke and passed away. When we explored that further, it doesn't make any rational sense, but the story, the belief that she had emotionally ingrained was, if I'm successful in business, it hurts or kills the people I love. Now, when that is a story that at an emotional level you believe, are you going to go out and create business success? Well, heck effing no, because
No.
there's something that's much more important to you than your business success. Now, when she realized that belief and in a very emotional session released a lot of the guilt and everything else that was attached to that story, she goes, thank you. Turned around. And by now I take pages out of her playbook because she built her business just like that, getting back to what she knows she can do. That is the power of stories and of beliefs. So be careful, right? This own worst enemy, because there's nobody out there telling you. You're telling this to yourself all of the time, which also means you don't tell yourself this just once a day. Chances are you tell this to yourself, 15 or 1,000 times a day. And every repetition to you makes it more true.
And, it's interesting in terms of the life events that you talked about that she experienced. It was almost, we see this a lot in younger children where they have this magical thinking that they think that because they did this, this happened. And in reality, I'm glad you helped her see that those were separate events. Her husband walked out on her because the marriage was probably failing in the first place. Her mother had a stroke. She had no control over an event that nobody has any control over. But yet she told herself that. But once you brought that to conscious awareness, it was like, okay, now I know what this blueprint is that's been inhibiting me to be as successful as I was in previous chapters of my life. And that's powerful when that type of insight is revealed. And it's the things that we tell ourselves about ourselves that get in the way of
It always
success
is.
and
Yes,
fulfillment.
it is. And if somebody's sitting there now thinking, like, how can a smart, successful woman even believe something like that?
Yeah.
Well, number one, because it's a very emotional experience. But number two, you just mentioned, right, as children, because most of us in our formative years between 5 and 8 or 9 or so, okay, you don't have to have a traumatic childhood to experience disappointment, emotional pain. Okay. Now we need emotional safety, just like we need food, shelter, and water.
Mhm.
Now, in our generation and the generations before us, most of us grew up with parents who were, shall we just say, semi well equipped to teach their children how to handle emotions
Mhm.
in a healthy manner, right? Because the previous generation didn't exactly teach it either. So now, as a child with a limited understanding of the child, when you look at something happening to you, you're looking for protection and safety from your parents. Theoretically, you might be able to grasp that, oh, maybe my parents aren't that adept at
Mhm.
doing this whole parenting thing. Okay. But to a child, that would be tantamount to a death sentence. The people
Absolutely.
you depend on, if they are not capable, well, that's going to threaten your survival. That leaves you with only one other explanation. If this happens to me, and there's nothing wrong with the people around me, that can mean only one thing. There must be something wrong with me. At some point in one version or another, most of us make that decision and believe it. But at
Mhm.
a time that when we're grown up, we don't remember, we don't really know anymore, but it's a belief that we've reinforced and reinforced. And if you have that playing in the background, then you get to things happen. So what did I do that was wrong?
That's right.
And
And
so that's where a lot of the deep work really then happens.
well, and you're right. I mean, early experience does matter, but it isn't just early experience that can shape the blueprint that causes us to not reach our goals. It could be just things that happen once we get out of the home. One of the things that you may have also run into this with the clients that you've worked in is I don't deserve success because of the inherent messages that I was told that I was not good enough. So therefore, I don't deserve success. So before I experience success and the uncomfortable changes that are going to go along with that, I'm going to self sabotage it before I even get out the door.
You see that a lot. I mean, look at any workaholic. it's not because there's an element in there where, of course, they're driven and they enjoy it, but there's also an element in there where I'm still trying to prove something to
Hmm.
people who may or may not still be around.
Yeah.
Okay. And the flip side to that is I work with a client who now runs a 7-figure business, who does it in less than 30 hours a week. And the conversation I had with her not all that long ago was, you know what, Sebastian, I almost feel guilty. Okay. So wait a minute. We got to everything you wanted and now you
Uh-huh.
feel guilty. Riddle me that. She's like, yeah, why do I get to have this life and do it with so much work when I see all the people around me working 50, 60 hours a week and they don't get nearly half the returns that I'm getting? Right. So the one you mentioned there, right? Do I deserve this? Am I good enough? Is such a fundamental, almost universal sort of self-doubt or belief or the way we see ourselves. And it's almost scary and frightening. At the same time, it makes my job a bit easier because I
Hmm.
know usually no matter what story you tell me in the beginning, it's going to come to one or two of those, right? Archetypes
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
that we all have. And the one thing we all get to learn at some point in life, ideally, is you don't have to prove anything to anyone.
No.
You're enough just the way you are. Now, I remind myself of that every morning and throughout the day. And still, when my children challenge me, when things go wrong, I get to remind myself again and again and again, because part of this, not enough. The flip side of that is, well, if we didn't have a drive to improve, there would be no progress either, right? You just got to strike the healthy balance to not let those voices in your head become distractors, but to keep them as productive members of your team is how I usually describe it, right? And give yourself permission to define success on your own terms.
Absolutely. Because success and abundance, and depending on our life experiences, can be defined so differently. And it doesn't have to be having a seven-figure income, although that'd be ideal for a lot of individuals that I know. But it could be abundance in relationships. It could be abundance in the service work that you do. It could be just think I have enough to pay my bills and live comfortably and be able to integrate w- that very seamlessly with family life.
Let
And
me interject one thing real quick, Dave, since you put it
use
that way. If the million truly motivates you, by all means, go pursue it. Let's just put one caveat on that. You don't want the million. You have no use for paper with dead people's faces on it, or in Europe, we have buildings and sites on it. No, what you really want is what you think that money will buy you. And when you go to that next level, then you tap into what is it really that you want? When I talk to the founders I work with, it's why did you start your business? Well, there's a reason for the product, the service, right? The passion, the purpose. But ultimately, for most of them, it's just like it was for me. I want more time. I want the freedom. I want all of that, right? We don't actually want the money. We want what we think that money will give us, ultimately, because of what we think about how it will make us feel. It's like, yeah, I'll take more time off when. Just that when never comes because that voice in your head moves the goalpost right as you're getting.
That's right.
One of my coaching mentors, whom I really admire, always says, you can never have enough of the things you don't truly need.
Yeah, that's very true. It's very true. So, what tools or strategies have you found to be most helpful in helping individuals shift their mindset, change negative thinking? What have you found has worked best, Sebastian?
Well, I'm going to give you the tongue in cheek answer first. Okay. You can't really sell coaching because somebody's got to experience it, right? When we say, as a coach, what do you do? Well, here's what this would sound like if I tried to tell you what I do. Okay. Basically, it sounds like this. Well, Dave, you would come to me with your problem. We'd spend some time talking about it, right? You would shift your mindset, your life would change, and you would happily pay me my fee for the results you've got. Okay. How would you like to sign up now? Chances are you're going to go, I'm not so sure about that, right? Now, this is why I get paid for the best job in the world. I mean, my clients do come with a problem. I ask them a few questions. I watch them do all the work, and they do happily pay me for the results they're getting. Now, in all seriousness, there is a bit of a method to the madness, even though it's not an exact science. There's an element to that where nowadays we simply start with what I call an advanced energy audit. Look, you tell me this is what you want. Does your calendar reflect that? Because If it doesn't, something is out of alignment, something's off. Secondly, let's look at where do you currently spend your time and what of that energizes you and what drains you of energy, right? What causes your negative stress? And we combine that with looking at and what really has an impact on the goals that you want to get to so that you get conscious on how you spend your most valuable resource, because that's not money. You can always go and make more money. Your
Mhm.
most precious resource is on the one hand, your health, of course. And on the other, it's your attention, your energy, and your time, because you can't have them back, right? Once you spend your time, account depleted for today. Now, the
Mhm.
good thing is it gets reset tomorrow with the same 24 hours. So you can always, do it differently. So that's what we look at first. It's like, look, if you come and work with me, chances are you're stuck in this. Look, I built this business because I wanted more freedom and now I'm a slave to my business. Or you're in a phase of your business where you say, hey, I'm successful. I've won at the game of business. Now what? Which ultimately both comes to the same question of, okay, what really matters to you in your life? How do you really define success?
Mhm.
And have you aligned how you spend your most important and precious resource with your definition of success? That's why
Mhm.
we start with the audit, where we first look at what does it look like, because you cannot change what you do not know. And then we go into the deep work of, okay, what are the things that you get to eliminate? What are the things that you get to do less of? What are the things you get to do more? And the things that drain you of energy, but that are critically important to your definition of success, how can you change the story you have so that it no longer drains you? This is part of designing your ideal week. Listen, you might never live your ideal day or your ideal week, but if you don't know what that would look like, how do you know what, right? So that's a big part of it. And then I would say the other big part is let's explore your
Mhm.
values, your beliefs, and the stories you have about yourself, right? I do work with those voices in your head and the positive intelligence program because there is a way to learn how to recognize those saboteur patterns we all have, how to catch it, label it, and shift away, right? How to rewire those neural pathways so that you're more aligned. I spent years learning to tell my Mr. Perfect up here to either join the team, pardon my French, or to sit down, shut the F up because I have work to do. Okay. But that's skill building. The other muscle I get pretty much all of my clients to build is we're all really good at looking at what should I have done better? What didn't go right? Very rarely do we stop and look at, hey, what went well? What do I get to give myself credit for? And if at the end of a long day, it's simply that I did shout at anyone or rip
Mhm.
anybody's head off, right? Or, hey, I got up, I showed up, right? Some days it's not the big wins, it's the small ones, but it's
Yeah.
how do you truly embrace yourself and develop kindness towards yourself? Because for 99% of us, the talk inside our own head, we would never talk to our best friend, our spouse, partner, or our kids with that degree of meanness, derogation, and just lack of respect.
Yeah.
Okay. On the flip side, if you have somebody in your life who's overly critical, who might even be mean and hurtful, I'm not excusing their behavior. Whatever they're showing you is nothing compared to how poorly they treat themselves inside their own head.
And the way they treat you is a reflection of the way they feel about themselves anyway, because
Exactly.
I mean, the world that they're experiencing inside their own head is going to reflect how they treat the world outside their own heads. And it's something that I think we need to learn not to take personally, that it's their behavior, it's their belief. It's not anything that we've done to cause that. It's how they choose to see the world. And we just happen to be the person that they're projecting their own low
Exactly.
self-image on.
To not take that personally
Mhm.
if you actually like yourself.
That's right.
But if you're still walking around with the I'm not enough, right? I don't deserve it, then you actually deserve being treated that way. So you do
Yeah.
take it on and you do take it personally.
Well, and the other thing that individuals who really show the worst sides of themselves, I mean, we have the emotions of the universe, both good and bad inside all of us. So when somebody shows us their worst side, in some way, we may be able to reframe that and say, well, they're being in service to us. What is it that their behavior is trying to make me aware of that I may need to work on? But you're right, it's not always easy to look at that in that situation, unless you maybe do some rehearsal in a coaching session to be able to respond to it that way. Because of, again, what we tell ourselves about ourselves. And if that self image is negative, we believe that, well, because we're not really good enough, we deserve to attract individuals who are going to reinforce my own self image that I have.
Yeah. Because we cannot hold two conflicting thoughts in here at the same time. So if I believe I'm not enough or I'm not worthy, the world has to conform, right? Not because, look, we don't even have to get into law of attraction or any other, but here's the science. We all have something called the reticular activating system. Consider that the supercharged filter that scans everything that comes in. We can't process I don't know what it is, 2.5 billion bits per minute of information that are coming at us. So in order to function, it has to be filtered and limited. That's what that system does. How does the system know what's relevant and what is not? Based on your core beliefs and
Hmm.
based on your identity, right?
Hmm.
And that is why if you believe you're not worthy, well, yeah, things that confirm that will be let in. And all the things that happen to you throughout the day that would have disproven it got filtered out.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Because if you think negatively of yourself, you inherently, subconsciously or unconsciously don't believe that you're worthy of anything good happening to you. Like when somebody gives you a compliment and says, hey, Sebastian, you really did a great job with this particular problem. And you blow it off and just say, it was no big deal. I was lucky. No, you weren't lucky. You made your own luck because of the inherent skills that you had to resolve that situation. But we don't see it when the negative is continually clouding our perspective.
The curse of the hyperachiever, right? Well, if I could have done it, then any other idiot might have done the same thing or even better. And even
Yeah.
if I do acknowledge that that was a good thing, that is such a short-lived moment
Yep.
of joy because you're already on to the next thing and you think finally that will make you happy and fulfilled. Why do I know? Been there, done that.
Yeah, and I think typically when we create space for somebody, it's usually we're sharing the wisdom that we've accumulated from our own experiences. And that's usually, I think, one of the best forms of teaching is through our experience. We learn and we can share that wisdom with others. In addition to just the techniques and the strategies and everything else, it's who we bring. I tell my students at Utica University, there's no counselor game face, there's no therapist game face. People are going to respond to the genuine you. So let that come out, and the counseling and the strategies will follow from your genuine personality. They're going to resonate with that first before you can begin to talk strategy or talk interventions. I found this observation from you on your LinkedIn profile. Work life balance is a lie. High achievers don't strive for balance. They create something better, life work integration. From your perspective, why is life work integration more beneficial to the quality of life in reaching our professional goals than work life balance?
I think there's two things to that. Number one, why is work-life balance a lie? It suggests that you have to somehow even out things, right? It puts you in this quest to fit your work in 8 hours so that you have 8 hours of sleep and 8 hours for, right? Those other things. I have competing priorities and competing values in my life. And yes, I need to resolve that. But do I resolve that by giving equal time to each of those? No. I can spend high quality time with my kids in 5 minutes, right? And yes, I can take a Sunday and just spend all day with them. And I do both. Okay. I think it is also a problem in that if you strive for work-life balance, you get yourself stuck in the same loop I was in, which is, okay, I only have 8 hours and then I need to, and then I should, and blah, 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 and off you go. Right? By some artificial notion of balance. What's balance? Okay. Instead, what's life work integration? Well, first of all, it puts life before work, which is subtle, but important. I don't work to live. Ideally, I do something that is meaningful to me, that I am passionate about. Okay. Something that has meaning for me, that is a part of how I express myself as a person, how I contribute to society, how I create purpose by adding value to others. I don't care what your job is, whether that's cleaning toilets, coaching, or running a $1 billion company. Ultimately, we all strive for meaning And you will find, I strongly believe that comes from contributing to others. Okay, there isn't a business in this world that isn't a people business.
Mhm.
If I'm really passionate about something and I'm building something in my business, I love dedicating time to that for that period that it takes to
Mhm.
build that thing, right? For that period for all of that. So during that time, all I will do is focus on my campaign, spend the rest of my time with the kids. Okay. And the only other thing I preserve is my hour and a half in the morning because that's what I need to charge up, meditate, right? Do all of that.
Mhm.
Everything else, literally everything else will wait. And that's okay because it's, for that. And
Mhm.
then at the end of that, whatever 2 week period, 4 week period, whatever it be, I go back to, a different approach.
Mhm.
Now, you might argue that's balancing it out in the long run. Yeah, but it's not about balancing it out. It's just about right now, if one of my kids gets sick, work gets canceled or pushed
Mhm.
back, it's not balance either. That they come first
Yeah.
because I build my business so that I can find the fulfillment I'm looking for, so that I can remind my clients who they truly are and watch them blossom and build their families, their businesses, their tribe. But ultimately, so that I can be a role model for my kids. Do they need me to build a successful business to do that? No, but I kind of like that part for myself and my own ego. I'll be straight here, right? But they come first.
Mhm.
And so this concept of life work integration takes the pressure off to balance it out, to even it out. Oh, I get to determine what that means in terms of time and energy. Yeah, right? I get to determine what is my ideal week like. Look, my clients cannot book calls with me Wednesday and Thursday after work because that's when my kids get out of school and I get to play with them until they go to bed.
And any time before that, you dedicate to your clients. But it's like after that, it's setting that boundary. Say after 1 o'clock, it's time for family.
Exactly. And on the flip side, I mean, I'm a morning person and I just had this conversation 3 days ago with my 10-year-old. He goes, Daddy, when do you get up? Like at 4:30. He did some quick math in his head. I'm like, that's really early. What do you do? Well, I do this, I do that. And then usually I do half an hour of my most important work. You work already before like my sisters and I even get up? I'm like, yeah, that works for me. No guilt, no nothing. It's just that works for me because I integrate those things, right? For someone else who is more of a night owl, they might do this after the kids go to bed. I'm just no
Mhm.
good anymore after 9 o'clock because it's just not my time of day. And when I do the exercise with my clients to build their ideal week, we start from what's your biorhythm? Ideally,
Yeah.
when do you do your best work? And how can you protect that time for your key priorities? For me, if I haven't done it before 10 in the morning, I've missed my most productive, cognitively, right, most powerful window already back in university, since that's where you play. When the last people finally went to sleep at 4 or 5 in the morning from studying all night, that's when I would get up and start studying.
Oh.
No, this is not better or worse. It's just about know yours and adapt everything you can to that rhythm.
And I've always been a morning person too. I'm up at about the same time you are, usually 4:30, and then, I have a workout regimen. I'll do whatever, I answer whatever emails and whatever I need to do and get then I have time for other things in my life. So, I mean, for me, the morning is where I maximize, most of my energy and where I get most of my work done. But, now, the clients that you get, are they mainly individuals who are high achievers that have seven-figure incomes or want seven-figure incomes? What the issues do they come in to talk to you about?
So I tend to attract a certain set of voices in the head. Okay. So I think that's just also a matter of who resonates with me. And I always tell them very clearly, look, let's have a conversation first because you got to make sure it's a good fit.
Yeah.
Hey, like when it comes to coaching, that's a very intimate relationship and you want to make sure that it fits on a personal level. And that's a gut decision, not a head decision.
Mhm.
Okay? So I tend to attract people, yes, who are driven. And the flip side of that is overdriven, right? A hyperachiever. Corollary with that is often a sense of if you're really good at knowing what needs to be done, if you take that a bit too far, you're getting into controlling kind of tendencies or into
Mhm.
the my way or the highway, or I know what's right and what's wrong, just that the world is usually not black and white. Okay. So that's what I find a lot. And then interestingly, somewhere in there, still a lot of them also have a pretty high tendency to avoid and procrastinate. if you have a strong hyperachiever, a lot of your self-worth is based on success, which means failure is the end of the world. So if we might fail, we're better off not even trying.
Yeah.
Okay. Which can get very much in the way of innovating, of taking risks. So that's more when I think about what kind of people than really the demographics or things around that. But when I look at the demographics, not to avoid the question, I think there's two groups. One is the founders, the entrepreneurs who are already at the 7-figure or aspiring to be, and who find, as I said earlier, it's like, oh, I did this for the freedom and somehow I can't create that. So I'm like, well, let's have a conversation and see what's going on, because chances are it's subtle beliefs that, just like I did, you can either or, right? And then I also work with leaders and executives who hold a job, right?
Mhm.
Come with very similar things, just one added thing that says, yeah, and then I have all these people who want something from me and feel like they can, right? Take time from my calendar. And there it helps that I've worked in corporate leadership positions for 15 years all over the globe. And I have an understanding of what that requires as well. But you know what? That context is just backdrop. Do I know anything about the actual business of my clients? In most cases, no, I don't. And I don't need to, because you know what your business is like, right? You know things,
Mhm.
still you don't do it. And that's where I come in. That's where we look at, okay, what's getting in the way? What is the story that gets in the way? What is the pattern? What is the belief? What is the fear?
Mhm.
Now, most of my clients, if I ask them, what are you afraid of? Achievers are never afraid. They're just stressed. But it's the same thing, right? If I stress about this, then that's because there's some doubt, there's some fears and stuff underneath. Okay. But ultimately, you say, who do I like to work with? Yeah. If you know there's more, and if you know, like you can sense there's something there, you can't put your finger on it, let's have a conversation.
And it sounds like it's extremely meaningful work, Sebastian.
And two things I say half jokingly about the work that I do. Some of my clients have literally said, I'm getting the sense that you're making it a sport to make me cry. I'm like, no, I'm not making it a sport to make my clients cry. I just know that when you do that deep work, that meaningful work on deeply rooted stories and beliefs, when you get there, there is a moment of whoa, and a lot of emotion that you've carried around pent up. I do tell them though, before we start working, is you better be sure you're comfortable working with me, because it is going to get uncomfortable, because it's beyond the edge of your comfort zone where growth and transformation truly happen.
And
And the other thing I say about my job is I get the best job in the world. I get to choose the people I want to work with. I find great people. All I do is have conversations all day long, some of them with clients, some of them with people on podcasts. And at the end of the day, I get paid to have fun and to live what I have found my purpose.
in that sense, work isn't work.
No. And that's why life comes first. And then it's like, when are you going to retire? I'm like, retire. And that's a concept that to my life work integration also doesn't exist. Like, why wouldn't I keep working with people I enjoy? Because as a coach, I can only take my clients as deep as I have gone myself. If I'm afraid to touch something within me, I'm going to hold back from pushing my clients there as well. Do I need to have the same story? No, but I need to have done the work, right? Of
Mhm.
creating that space for myself and working on that. And still, I learn as much from my clients as they learn from me, because it's a relationship that you co-create, which is why that chemistry, why that fit
Yeah.
is so important. A lot of my clients say, look, I was in the market for a business coach, for a marketing coach, for this coach or for that coach, whatever. And now I'm talking to you and I'm actually about to pay for what you're offering. I had no idea I even needed it. I'm like, yeah, well, once you've worked with me, something shifts, because this is not the first marketing coach you're going to hire, right? How many did you have before? Well, two. What have you done with the things they gave you? Not much. That's why you're talking to me.
That's
Because
right.
when you shift what got in the way, you already know what to do.
Yeah.
When you
And
say, I don't know, that's usually not true. That usually means you were too afraid to look.
Mhm. Yeah. It's what voice in my head was telling me that I was not capable or worthy of implementing the strategies that were presented to me.
Thus, we close the loop. You can do this yourself. It might just take a whole lot longer than you would like it to. There's a reason top athletes and top performers don't usually have just one coach, but have several for different parts of it, because there's just something there to do that. Whether you choose to work with a coach or with a mentor or on your own, though, you don't need to have any clue about the how. You don't even need to be clear on what that is going to be. But at some level, you have to make a decision that you're willing to entertain the possibility that something else might be possible. And when you feel that inkling, I just wish and hope for you that you hold on to that through all the struggles, through all the ups and downs, because it is a journey. It's not smooth sailing. You know, just hold on to that belief, because you don't notice it in the day to day. But when you look back 6 months ago, 12 months ago, that's when you see a lot of the shifts.
And I think whenever we want to transform our perspective, redefine our narrative, it's never a linear path. There's going to be stops and starts. There's going to be, one step forward, one step backward, or two steps forward and one step backward, which I tell individuals, if you're two steps forward and one step backward, you still made progress because you're one step ahead. So just realize that progress isn't linear when it comes to really just shifting our perspective, changing our narratives. It's going to come with stops and starts. Honor the stops as much as you would honor the starts, and learn from everything, because anything good or bad can give us information about ourselves that we can use to improve the quality of our life.
One thing to add to that, and keep in mind, you're not here to reach a destination. Life is happening right now, and now, and now, which means this whole journey it's not just part of the process. That is the dawn experience, right? When you solve one problem, why do you solve the problem? Not to live a life free of problem. It's just so you can grow into the next bigger problem.
That's right.
Right? Whether that's in business or in spirituality, it really doesn't matter. I mean, I firmly, personally believe if I were to ever stop learning, I'm pretty much dead.
I would join you in that as well, too. The day I stop learning is the day that I died a spiritual death, and probably shortly thereafter, a physical death. If you're going to leave our listeners with one thing today, or as I like to tell my guests, one thing with subcategories, because that has happened as well, too, what would that be, Sebastian?
Oh, I think I maybe jumped the gun on that one a bit. I would go back to what I just said a bit ago as one of those things. And that is, no matter what reality you're experiencing right now, this is a tough pill to swallow, but it's kind of like in the Matrix. Once you take the pill, you can never go back. Consider that the reality you're living is the result of your beliefs and those subconscious patterns. Yes, that sucks initially because it feels like, oh, I only have myself to blame. Okay, let's let go of the blame. You didn't know any better. Here's the power that shift gives you. If that is true, then you can change those beliefs and those patterns, and you will inevitably change the results you're getting. So take back your power, believe that there is another possibility. Okay. That there is ways to do that. Hold on to that and trust the process. And at the same time, as much as you can, and I know at certain times it just sucks to be knocked down and have to get back up. All of that, as you said, Dave, is valuable experience. So don't do it for some imaginary destination. Do it for the journey, for the process. And surround yourself with as many people as you can who actually believe that you are worthy. Yes, you can do this. And then the other subcategory is, even if you don't believe it yet, start a gratitude practice, even if it's small. If you don't find anything about yourself to be grateful for, great. Don't push against that yet. Start with things around you to be grateful for. You've trained yourself to be critical of yourself. You've trained yourself to reject yourself, to not find anything good. That's just a muscle you've built. Therefore, you neglected the other muscle, which is just focus on the things that are going well. Focus on the things you can be grateful for. Keep doing that even when it doesn't feel like it's doing anything for you. And over time, your world changes because your default filter has become just a tad brighter. And all of a sudden, you go looking for the things that are going well and that are going bright. You start spreading more smiles to the people around you, and you get more smiles back. This is not pink, rosy glasses. This is that everything that happens to you is always a gift and an opportunity. You decide how you're going to unpack it.
Absolutely. And I like the gratitude practice. Even if we take a minute each day at the end of the day, write down one thing that we were grateful for, one good thing that happened to us, even in the worst possible day that you've ever had. You can find one thing to be grateful for. And it's something that we need to make more of a conscious practice in our lives too, so that we can see the yin among, as well as the yang. So my last question for you, my friend, is if people want to get in touch with you, want to find out more about your services, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I think there's two ways, and maybe I'll just share it with the notes for the episode. Number one, I decided that LinkedIn is my social media kind of platform, if you will. So just look me up there under Chief Mindsetter and you'll find the profile, reach out. I'm happy to start the conversation. That's what I'm there for, to meet fun, interesting people and have conversations. Every Saturday, I send an email to what I call my tea list, take empowered action. Also tea, because to me, tea is what I drink, but tea is also that expression of taking the time for the things that matter. Okay.
Mhm.
So every Saturday for free, you get an email into your inbox that has a reminder for you to sometimes more practical, sometimes more mindset oriented on how to take back your most precious resource, your attention, your energy, and your time. So just look that up under chiefmindsetter.com and you can just sign up there.
Excellent. And I'll make sure all of that information gets in the episode notes. So, Sebastian, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend with me and to share space on the Teaching Journeys podcast. I enjoyed our conversation. I hope we can do a follow up in the future.
There's a lot of topics that I already noted that we couldn't even get into yet. And it's been truly my pleasure, Dave, because I totally resonate with the teaching journeys, right? That aspect of, hey, life is a journey. So is growth. So is learning, and find the companions that you enjoy the journey with. This was definitely a very pleasurable little walk. So thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure, Sebastian. And with that, that is a wrap on another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, wishing you peace.